Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today on my channel we're going to be doing a review on the Walthers Mainline Burlington Northern Wide Vision Caboose in HO scale. I've needed this caboose for a long time to help model the Cody Local, and I think it's going to be a great addition to the layout. We're also going to be doing a weathering in this video, so stay tuned. Alrighty, so let's get down into the unboxing. We're going to open it up here and we'll look at some of the details. This is Walthers Trainline, so it comes in, I may have said mainline earlier, that's my bad. This is Walthers Trainline, and so it doesn't have as many details as the mainline would, and the packaging is also not as extravagant. That's perfectly fine. It's the product that we're worried about. So we'll get down into the details here. So right off the bat here, we have our metal wheel sets with our plastic trucks. Plastic trucks are very typical, so nothing new there. Very good quality there. Also, couplers. We have I think it's like the Walthers Trainline signature plastic coupler right there. So nothing too fantastic there. I might, it depends, but I may end up switching these out for metal KD couplers. But as of now, they're just fine. We have a silver roof, which is pretty typical for these Burlington Northern cabooses. In the weathering, we will probably paint the end cages here white, all this round bar, and then back here, this where this green is, we'll probably paint yellow because that's kind of the prototype that I model. And then we have our little exhaust or smokestack. I think in these old Burlington Northern cabooses, they had a stove inside, so I think that's what that is. So it's wide vision, so it's a little bit, you can see it, it's a little wider than the actual caboose itself. So in the old days, the conductor used to sit up here and watch the train, make sure that you radioed the engineer from up here to tell him like if he missed a signal or so on and so forth. Down here in the bottom, we have our steps actually right here. Probably saw that, our brake wheel. Everything's in fairly good detail for Walthers Trainline. But then down here we have all of our like air brake, like I want to say compressor housing and everything is down here for like the air brakes. This is like the air tank, I believe. And then some other stuff. This might be for the hydraulic brakes or something like that. I can't remember exactly because I model a little newer than these cabooses, but this caboose runs on the Cody Local, so I had to get it. So that just about does it for the details. We'll give it a run by here, and then we will do a weathering. We're going to do a quick run by now. I don't have my locomotive currently up and running. I have to weather it and stuff, so video coming out on that soon. So I don't want to take the liberty to set it up, so we're just going to do a run by here on this piece of flex track, just to kind of show you how smooth it runs and everything. Later I will take a Phillips screwdriver and tighten up the trucks a little bit, because you can see right here it's like a little wobbly, and I usually like to eliminate that with the screws on the underside that hold the trucks to the frame. But anyway, here's a run by here. It rolls actually really smoothly thanks to those wheel sets. Very, very smoothly. So, nothing too spectacular, but I must cover all my bases when I'm doing a product review. So, there's a little roll by for you. Now we'll go weather it a little bit. So, first step of the weathering process is to disassemble this. I'll throw all the parts in my trusty magnetic tray, and I'll do a time lapse here, so because it takes a little bit sometimes to disassemble a car like this. So. There we go. I'll toss my screwdrivers to the side here. We got the car all disassembled. I will take a look at my my prototype picture, see which parts of this is yellow, which parts of these end cages are yellow, and which parts are white, and then we'll mask everything off and paint it. And then the couplers, like I already said, they're these little plastic ones. I'll probably leave them because they're compatible with KD couplers and they look to be fairly good quality for plastic couplers in and of themselves. So I'll probably just leave them. Wheel sets are these Walthers Trainline wheel sets. They just have that plastic axle, but the wheels themselves are actual metal, so I'll leave those as well. And then later we'll come back and weather the trucks too. So, and then I'll also see which parts of this need to be painted yellow as well. Then we'll mask everything off, and then we'll thin down some yellow paint and paint them. Now that everything is masked, we can go ahead and thin down some yellow paint. I decided not to try to mask the end cages off because I looked at my picture and all that was white was this let me get my this will work. All that was white were these little pieces of round bar and this ladder, and then the pieces of round bar on the side. Everything else was yellow. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna paint the main parts yellow, and then I'll come back with fine tip paintbrush and some white paint, and we'll paint that round bar later. But right now we're gonna thin down some yellow paint so we can do the big stuff, and then we'll come back with and do the little stuff later. Now that we got the paint mixed up, that paint was a little old, so I had to do a little more mixing off camera because it's got some goobers in it, for lack of better words. Um, so I got those out, and now it's nice and smooth, so it won't clog the airbrush up. And we'll put it right in the airbrush. Grab it over here. Ready? Pop the cap off, and throw some of this paint in here. Ready? I'm not going to put too much in because I don't know how much we'll need, how much will end up actually going on. Also, if there's any goobers that I missed on the during the mixing, those goobers will sink to the bottom if I don't put all of it in. So it's just a little safer for the airbrush and for the model itself because we don't want chunky paint going on there. All right, we'll put this over here for later, and we will throw the cap back on. I gotta finish wiping the rim off. There we go. Throw the cap back on so none spills while we're airbrushing. And plug it into the hose like that. And now we'll start airbrushing. I was trying to go a little faster than usual, so I messed up a little bit. Like you can see on here, those dribbles on the ladder. Whoops, the dribbles on the ladder here. I didn't mean to do, because I was going a little faster, which I probably shouldn't have done. But the end cages turned out really nice, and so did the um, steps here. So we'll take the masking tape off and throw everything back together, and then we can do the actual weathering part of it. But first, after we uncover or unmask the cages here, we will paint this round bar before we put everything back together, and then we'll do a matte finish over the stuff that's already painted yellow so it doesn't rub off. I just gave everything a clear coat with this stuff, this Rust-Oleum matte clear coat stuff that I bought at the hardware store. I think it's like $8 or something. But anyway, that'll just seal in everything that I've already painted just to make sure it doesn't come off. And then I'll do another coat of this stuff later once the actual weathering is done. I just had a big brain idea. This Walthers Trainline stuff actually doesn't really come with any windows in their cabooses or anything like that. And so I took some of this plastic that comes in like packaging and stuff like that, and I'm gonna cut it up and glue it on the inside here of the shell while we have the shell off. I'll glue it on the inside, and then we'll have windows. The only tricky thing is that I'll have to do that after the weathering, so I won't have to mask everything off. So I'm actually not gonna throw the end cages on yet, and what I'm actually gonna do is I'm just gonna set the shell on the case here, or on the bottom here. I'm just gonna set it on there, clip it on. It has these little clips on there. I'm just gonna clip it on, and then I'll do the weathering, and then I'll come back so I don't have to mask the windows, and I'll put the windows in. So what I'm gonna do now is I just snapped the shell on with those little snap-on thingies, and I'll start off with a road grime. I learned this from Panzermeister36. You can go check out his channel. That's where I learned a bunch of my weathering techniques, is because he's like really good at it. But I learned this road grime thing from him, and I have it mixed up here. I put it in this Tupperware so I could preserve it. But it's like this like grimy. It's almost black on the camera, but in person it's like a dark, super dark brown gray sort of color. And anyway, when you put it in the airbrush, it actually turns out a little bit lighter than this because the airbrush puts it on in a really thin coat. But this stuff is actually perfect for the bottom because it really simulates the griminess of dirt and stuff kicked up by the wheels. So we'll do that, and then I'll come back after. Well, while that's drying, we can work on wheel sets and also trucks. I just went ahead and threw some of that grimy gray paint in the airbrush there. And so we'll start off here with these tanks probably. Oh, one thing. When you start weathering, I masked off for the yellow. I masked off these coupler boxes because if paint gets in there, it'll keep your couplers from moving smoothly. So super quick, I'll mask those off and then we'll start painting. So instead of weathering, I decided to just throw the coupler housing boxes back on there, because they work, and also there's no moving parts outside of there besides the screw, but the screw doesn't need to be masked off or anything, so we're good there. Now we just grab our paintbrush, or airbrush I mean, and go to town. You can do, you actually don't have to do any fading effects on the bottom. I personally just go for it. You can, like here, you can kind of see the paint forming. My lighting's kind of terrible, so I apologize for that. But I bring the airbrush down to about 30 psi roughly. That's usually, yeah, 30 psi is usually good for the bottom. And then I'll just finish up that, and then we'll move on to the sides when we get done with the bottom. There we go, the bottom's done. You can see right here on the steps, I toned down the yellow a bit, and then these air compressor housing and everything. has air tanks, has been switched from the black to the grimy gray. So you can't really tell on just the black surface. It's easier in person, but you can definitely tell it doesn't have that sheen anymore as it would straight out of the box with just the standard black. So that's toned down. Now we'll move on to the sides. Typically on cabooses, I like to tone down the yellow a little bit on the steps, and then I'll do just a tiniest bit of road grime buildup on the sides here. And then for the coupler boxes, I'll just probably do a little bit of buildup there too. And so we'll do that all around. And then probably on the top, you see how it's super chrome still? I might just do a quick, like with the airbrush on the top here to tone the silver down a little bit. But we'll get to that. In my opinion, that grimy gray color really transforms this thing. You can tell that it's definitely been through a little bit. It's a little older. Um, I toned down the roof a little bit with the grimy gray color. The matte finish will do the rest of the toning down, but um, and then I did the build up there. So next step is to probably take the rust color on a paintbrush and put it on the air tanks here, and probably repaint the couplers as well. For the next step, I'm going to be using this Tamiya XF68 NATO brown, and this is more of a rust color, and so I'm going to hit the air tanks with that, and also I'm going to repaint the little knuckle couplers here. So I'll take the lid off here, and this is just a super quick hit, not super complex. So I just finished painting the couplers. I just painted them with that NATO brown, the XF68, and then I also did that with the wheel sets. And then on the bottom of the caboose here, I painted, I don't know if you can see that, yeah, there you go. I painted a little bit more of the XF68, the NATO brown, onto the air canisters. Yep. So the air system's basically rusted up and everything on all the prototype pictures I've looked at of these Burlington Northern cabooses. And then now we will hit these trucks with the airbrush and set these aside for when the trucks are done. Here we go. So I don't know if you can see that. My lighting's pretty crap. But those are not black anymore. Those are the grimy gray color of the underside of the caboose there. And then I'll probably do another coat just to ensure that they will stay that color. but then I will go over that with the XF68 on the roller bearings and the springs, and then we can throw everything back together. See, pops a little bit. And then the excess you can kind of just wipe off with your finger if you accidentally put too much on. It's not a big deal since it's so small. Like that. And then you can just do the same on the other one. Like the excess. Make sure it's not chunky. Like so. One last thing I'm going to do with this XF68 before I put it away is I'm going to do some really subtle streaking, or hopefully really subtle, right here on the side. So what I'm just going to do is put a little bit of that XF68 just in random places, and then I'll just kind of rub it with my finger, and hopefully you can see that little bit of rust right there, but basically it just streaks it down, makes it look a little older. That. Do a little bit of rusting on the top here, just to age it a little bit. Not super complicated. You can skip this step if you want. I put it on just add a little more effect, but there we go. It's really subtle, but it works fairly well. That's another really good technique for covered hoppers. Covered hoppers are kind of famous for subtle streaking like that, and subtle and not so subtle actually. But you can see use the same technique for both. And so now we're gonna put the windows in, and then we can throw everything back together, and we'll be done. I just popped everything apart here, so we can put windows in. This top one is going to be the hardest because there's so many in such a little space. But then we'll do all these bottom ones. So I just finished cutting up all the windows, and now I'm going to install them with this Testors non-toxic liquid cement stuff. This stuff is really good, especially for modeling, but also like for stuff like this because it dries clear. So that's nice. So we'll get these windows installed, and then we get to put everything back together. In the time lapse, I bet you couldn't tell, but you can kind of see the window-like substances inside that I put in. That's kind of cool. So this trick will work with especially any Walthers Trainline cabooses that don't have windows, but also like just products in general that don't have windows. You can cut up that plastic stuff, put it in there, and it looks really realistic. So now we'll put the caboose together and we'll be done. There we go. There's the final result. Turned out really well in my opinion. Added those windows, matte finish, toned the paint down a little bit, made it a little more grimy. Turned out really, really nice. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Legends.